Taylor Marshall is running for president. What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, realistically, he virtually has no shot of winning the Republican primary, or the general, obviously, for that matter. If he were to run as a Republican, he probably wouldn't win. I do believe that is the right path for him to take, though, because I believe he has a shot of making it to the debates, and the threshold to reach them is just a small percentage of the polls. I don't know the exact number, but it is definitely a number that he could reach. And so he could get his message out to millions of people if he made it to the Republican debates, which is a national stage. And while I agree that it is better not to associate oneself as a Republican or any current political party for that matter, it's hard to imagine him reaching audiences that he hasn't already made contact with if he simply just ran as an independent. Simply put, as a Republican, his potential reach far exceeds any that he could dream of attaining as an independent candidate. Plus, as a longtime listener of Dr. Marshall, the prospect of him on the debate stage with a group of fake people known as politicians who pretend to have principles is just too appealing. That would be fun to watch. So, all true Catholics should be all behind him in this year's presidential race. I'm not very old at all, but I've already reached the point where I have no trust in just about anyone in politics. Certainly, everyone with national recognition. I was fully on board the Trump train back in the day, just like so many others. I believed his outsider status would make him different, that he would stick it to Washington, D.C. and the establishment. But I was wrong, as were many of us. He had a solid stint as president until the COVID pandemic exposed his weaknesses. He locked people out of their homes, away from family, away from what was most important, which was the mass. Many people couldn't attend mass during that much of that time. So to this day, also, he's still selling his vaccine as his greatest accomplishment, saving millions of lives, he claims. He was the first president, too, to fully embrace the alphabet mob, which, which gave them just unprecedented power and just so much recognition that it's just hard to fathom for such a small group of people. Now, now Obama was, of course, supported them later in his tenure, but I don't think he'd ever reach this extent that Trump has reached at his point. And so, one good thing about Trump, his greatest accomplishment by far was the overturning of Roe v. Wade, something I will always be thankful for. But unfortunately, even with that glowing abortion record, he couldn't help but make the ridiculous comment that Florida's 6-week abortion ban was too harsh. Regardless of how it is translated, either he personally thinks that it is too harsh or that he thinks that's a losing strategy. And the latter is the next point I wanted to make in general. What do present day conservatives consider as winning and losing? Progressively, they are more interested in playing defense and sacrificing the morals and principles they claim to hold in order to win. For example, Trump believes we need to be more lenient with the abortion laws in order to win elections. But what's the point in gaining power if you're just going to be a less radical liberal? I vote for a candidate because I believe they will fight abortion, homosexuality, unjust taxation, etc. Not because I like the candidate and I'll back him no matter what he does, but because of his policies that I would believe he would pass. So here's how politics in America works right now. You have the progressives being the aggressors, pushing the Overton window further left each cycle, maintaining their core voter base. Then you have so called conservatives following behind them from a distance and keeping their voter base. Each side makes their usual appeal to the so called moderates who shift along with them. And at best, you have Republicans in good faith trying to win and do good, but in order to do so, they have to shift along with the trend and sacrifice any principles they once held. Many Republicans, who people would describe as staunch conservatives, have criticized the overturning of Roe v. Wade and any strict rhetoric against abortion as political suicide because it's too extreme. Because we need to allow the killers to murder some babies so that we can still win office. Whatever, because that's all that matters. So now it's true in these times, if I was a candidate for a presidential or any national race, if my platform was a complete ban on abortion and so called gay rights, I wouldn't have a chance of winning. Why is that? Well, it's because of the gradual losing that we've been experiencing, even though we are still technically winning elections. We've lost the core base, the core principles in our society. We'll keep losing this way as long as we continue electing the Trumps, the Bushes, DeSantises, etc., who are all funded by big corporations and who will only be dictated by the current social and political landscape. Whatever stance will give them the best chance of getting elected, basically. Now, a guy like Taylor Marshall running for president will be the complete opposite of that. His intention is to use his influence and platform to shift things back in the other direction. While conservatives are running to win, which means moving to the left and abandoning any principles necessary to achieve that victory, he's running not necessarily to win, but to stick to his morals and beliefs and hope that that example and message can begin to move the Overton window back in the right direction. Now, fellow Catholics, who are you willing to back? The money-worshipping politicians who don't actually care about the moral stances that they claim to hold and will continue shifting to the left in order to hold their precious positions in power, or the actual outsider who's running on a platform proclaiming that Christ is king? You can keep going with the same old, this bickering back and forth between two people who are pretty much the same person, or someone who has shown that he cares and is a genuine person for years and wants to make a difference. I know what my decision is. I pray and hope that many other Catholics and conservatives will come to this realization as well. So, have a wonderful rest of your week, and God bless.